And can you give us some advice on how to use discernment about keeping, because there is so much pseudo knowledge about this subject, how do we use discernment and how can we gauge real knowledge from pseudo knowledge that's out there?
I think we awaken our discernment just by looking at the material, reading it, thinking about it, and then seeing intuitively just what is a response that comes from our heart. Now, I think that each of us has a way of filtering information that comes to us by that intuitive faculty. We know more than we think we do. There is a greater source of information available to us. Like I said, our higher self is always available when we call upon it. And we have guides that help us out too, and loved ones that pass on. So if we say, in our meditation, if we say, now, what should I do about this situation, and then meditate on it, you're very likely going to get an answer. Or maybe just contemplate, just think about it. Because we know what we need to do, really. Sometimes we don't think we do, sometimes we confuse ourselves, but if we just really get down to, well, what does my heart want? What does my heart say? Then go with it. And you know, your way is just as good as anybody else's. We're all different. We can use all the tools, or some of the tools, or a few of the tools that are available. There are so many available from good sources. But what you choose is your way, and go with it and do it. It's just as valuable as anyone else's.
What do you think, Kerry?
I have something to add, but I've been going after Jim a lot. Austin, do you want to get in space?
Jim's describing this very personal approach to discernment, and I think that's really important because we could give advice about how we think is the valid way to find quote-unquote valid information, but then we could describe this material that we would find invalid, that somebody who hears us is going to say, but the material that I resonate most with is just like that, and it's been infinitely useful in my own life. So I think that it's important to realize that people have their own journeys, and sometimes there are stages on journeys where information that is appealing to them in a certain way, in a certain light, is useful for a reason. So if it is quote-unquote invalid information or distracting information, they are still interested in it and they resonate with it because it is part of their journey of learning, and they will eventually learn something from their resonance with that information. So we do, I think, have ways and ideas, and Gary might share some, about how to find quality, valid information, but it's important not to make that a blanket generalization about everybody's path.
This is why I love, we do a podcast together, and we three respond to a common question, and I always love listening to what they have to say, because no matter how complete or deep I think my own reply might be, I'm always awed that they thought of something that's equal to or better than whatever came to my own mind, and we three synthesize into a more complete answer. But anyway, sorry. Regarding discernment, like Austin said, every path is unique, and Ra says specifically that there are no mistakes. So even if somebody has a low threshold of discernment and is just gullibly soaking up everything and being distracted and not digging into what we would consider the heart of spiritual evolution, that's right for them. And either through folly or resonance, they will eventually learn. But what I wanted to add to Austin's was that upon our own path, I think I can speak for all three of us, but correct me if not, some of the measures that we in general might employ when exercising discernment include what's the word I'm looking for? The depth of the information. For instance, information can be on the surface level shallow and transitory and distracting. One easy target that comes to mind is conspiracy theory. As fascinating as that can be, it tends, in our opinion, if somebody else is interested in conspiracy theory, more power to them. I'm only reflecting on what works for us and what we consider valuable. Conspiracy theory tends to take the attention away from the work of opening the heart, tends to lead to a disempowered worldview, and because it's this realm of misinformation and disinformation, and you never know what's true, and it's always every day there's a new narrative and a new story, and the whole world then becomes interpreted through this lens of what sinister plan is being hatched. But I'm getting a little off track here. Other shallow sources of information fall under the category that Ra called transient, meaning our path of spiritual evolution is about discovering the eternal self, the infinite self, who and what we really are. And some information is information, say, about the stock market. That's transitory, or transient rather. It's not really going to help, likely, from our perspective, not likely going to help us discover who we are beyond our personality shell, the infinite self within. And another lens of discernment includes positive versus negative. Ra describes a possibility that those who channel, rather, let me say, act like radios. They tune their dial to receive a certain frequency from a discarnate source. And if the tuning is not done properly, for instance, if you open up your radio, there are, in Ra's cosmology, negatively oriented beings. So the channel could receive negatively oriented sources of information and not know it because their tuning isn't as precise as it could be, and they have not challenged the source in the name of that which is closest to their heart. So anyway, a very positively oriented channel could receive negatively oriented information. And in discerning what is positive versus negative, there's no ultimate litmus test, but some of the criteria that we three might employ when making that discernment is negatively oriented information may focus on transient information. It may speak to the necessity of control of self or others. It at base, one of its key tactics is to create an environment and mindset of fear and paranoia and worry about the future and the things that you need to do to survive. But at its heart, negatively oriented information will suggest the elite, that something is, they will help to aggrandize the ego of the person or the audience and to suggest that they are better than or different than or other than or so forth, and not focus on the message of unity and love, whereas positively oriented sources will speak with inspiration about the unity of all things and the humble oriented service of opening the heart and loving all other selves as the self, whatever it is they do, whatever government they belong to, or whatever sinister plot they may be hatching, that love is the center and is the way forward. So that's just like a thumbnail, really rough sketch of how one might apply different lenses of discernment. And those, of course, aren't the only ones. Those are just some really general, vague ideas.
I so agree with those ideas, and I think it's necessary nowadays because we have so much information that's being thrown at us. It's good to have some tips around how to use discernment.
Any viewpoint nowadays can be validated with an internet search. You can find proof or evidence of anything that you believe in with the internet. So it's a very difficult time to find truth. For whatever that means to you, anything can seem true.
So this will be personally useful to me.
And information that is of value to us is stuff that will matter 10,000 years from now. It speaks to spiritual principles that will always be useful on the journey, not just for what's happening in the year 2018, for instance.